Hi, everyone. You are watching Simply SCAdian, no title required. I'm Zoph. Once again, I am co-hostless. And as I say that, I realize that I didn't change my name, so I failed in that. So Simply SCAdian, no title required is a show about people who are not peers in the SCA. We believe very strongly, Lucas, my co-host, who's a poopy head because he's not here tonight, because how dare he have a real life? It's very upsetting to me. Um, uh, but we believe that everybody has a voice and everybody should be heard in the SCA. So Simply SCAdian, no title required, was started so that we could start spotlighting, highlighting, and talking to people who are not peers in the SCA. And over the past 2 seasons, we have learned so much from so many people, to an impromptu cooking lesson a few weeks ago, to we learned about vinegars and music and dancing, and it has just been incredible. And fighting. We rounded out season 1 with a chivalry panel, and I was just telling tonight's guest that I think this will be our last show. And then I realized, no, wait, I got to do a panel. We decided we would always end our season with a panel, so I guess we'll be back in 2 weeks. That'll be the end of this season, and we'll take off July and August, but we'll do a panel. Let me know what you think. What would you like the panel to be on? The last panel was chivalry, which was fascinating to talk to people from all over the known world about chivalric values in the SCA. And would you like us to revisit that, or would you like us to talk about, honor? What does honor mean in the SCA, or virtue? Pick one of those um those chivalric virtues. Or do we want to talk more with some brewers? Let me know. Send us an email, send me a message on Facebook, whether to the page, or if you know me, or if you don't know me, doesn't matter. I'm Zoph. Just type in ZSOF and I should show up, because I bet I'm a friend of yours. And let me know what you'd like our final episode this season to be about. So that being said, we also have a pinned post on our page on Facebook, so you can nominate people to be guests on the show. And tonight's guest, I am so delighted. I've been slowly working my way through the list of people that were recommended, and this gentle was, and I am just thrilled. So let me pull up that page so I can tell you. All right, Rosa Rossini. Rosa found the SCA in 2004 when they started college. Their mother had been in the SCA when she was in college, so they wanted to track down this interesting group. Rosa met their spouse in the local SCA in the local group and formed friendships that lasted longer than they would have dreamed possible. Unfortunately, they also experienced gatekeeping, unfriendly peers, and unkind words. This eventually led Rosa to consider if the SCA was the place for them, and so they quit the SCA for almost a decade. After a while, though, they realized they were missing one very important thing that the SCA provides to so many: community. So they came back to the society, their friends, and found new purpose, creating the safe, inclusive, supportive environment they needed as a new person. They hold the privileges of being white, having a decent paying job that provides paid time off and health care, being able bodied, and being in a long term relationship that presents as heteronormative. Their marginal identities include being female bodied, gender fluid, pansexual, and being in a long term relationship that presents as lesbian. They want to help build an SCA that supports everyone's SCA dream in a fully inclusive manner, embracing people of all backgrounds and identities. Welcome, Rosa.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Zeph.
You know what? This is awesome because it's Pride Month. And last year we had Sada to start us off with Pride Month, and this year we have you. So that's wonderful. And you've got your rainbow peacock feather behind you, and you're wearing multicolors. So um, I'm just thrilled to have you. I'm thrilled that you were nominated. I've known you for a while, on look, but we've never really had a chance to talk. So I'm really, really excited to have a chance to introduce you to everybody else in the known world. How'd you find the SCA?
Yeah. So when I was a kid growing up, my mom always had this funny little. I always thought it was a home security type of weapon type of thing, kind of tucked under the edge of her bed. And it was this. It looked like a cross or maybe a sword. It was covered in duct tape, and I always wanted to know what it was. Why do you have this thing? And eventually, as I got into high school, she told me about this little club, this group that she was in when she was in college called the SCA. And they did sword fighting and costumes, and there were knights and queens and kings and all of this. And she said a lot of times it's near college campuses. Um, and so when I got into college, I went looking for it. I just kind of kept my ear out and eventually made a friend with someone in my dorm room who happened to be part of the local group at the time. And he dragged me along to the next fighter practice. And yeah, I just started forming fast friendships from there. And I met my spouse at one of those practices. He was a heavy fighter at the time. So yeah, I was hooked.
And then you left. How long were you in before you decided enough was enough for you?
I'm trying to think. I think I was in for about maybe 6 or 7 years, I want to say. The math gets a little hazy in my head. Maybe 6 years or so. And I was learning all of the things. I wanted to jump in and do everything. And I naturally gravitate towards artistic things. So I went straight towards the ANS competitions and the laurels and all of that, and tried in my incredibly awkward at the time way to integrate into that world. Um, and there were a couple of things that held me back from that. One being the fact that I was still very new to both the SCA, but to the world as a whole. I'd been raised in a very, very sheltered lifestyle. My parents were incredibly conservative, homeschooling. So just being out in the world and sort of being loose and on my own was in and of itself a shock to my system. So I was still working through all of that while also trying to integrate into this society and these groups of people who've been friends with each other for 20, 25 years. And I found the whole thing very overwhelming. There were a few people along the way who were really lovely and reached out to me and took me under their wing, and they're still my fast friends to this day. These are people I consider my family at this point. Um, but yeah, it was difficult because I did run into some things like peer fear and some gatekeeping, and I because I kept kind of bumping up against that, I started to wonder, like, is this actually for me? I'm feeling so stressed by this, and what I thought it was going to be for me was going to be a fun, creative atmosphere with everyone being everyone's best friend, and it was very idealistic. Um, but that was the vision I had in my head. Everyone gets along and is supportive of one another and their goals. And yeah, I got a little bit disillusioned for a little while. And so I dropped out and cast about for a while for some other things to do. I dabbled in steampunk. I took up gardening like it was my life's mission. It is not. I burn entirely too easily for that. And I'm allergic to nature in general. So, no. But yeah, I really just found, especially during the time of the pandemic shutdown, when I was working from home and everyone was very isolated from one another, I found that I was really, really yearning to reconnect to people on um, a more intimate and vulnerable level. And so I kind of dipped my toe back in the water just before the pandemic. And once that really hit, I really realized how important it was to me to have these networks and these friendships. And so that's what kept me in. And yeah, but I think will probably keep me here for a good long while.
So did your spouse leave the SCA the same time you did? So you both made the decision together to come back?
Yeah, yeah, he was experiencing some of his own disillusionment at the time through for different reasons, and we both just decided, we need to take a break from this. We need to step back and reevaluate what our priorities are, what brings us joy. And at the time, the SCA just wasn't bringing us joy.
Mhm.
Uh, and so, yeah. But then we both, in our own independent, moments, were like, no, I really think that is where I belong, and so we came back to it.
Well, I'm glad you did. Um, so now that you're bat. Well, first let's I don't want to get too deep into the weeds so soon. We have time. We have time. Let's talk about what you do in the SCA. What are your passions? What are your hobbies?
So a lot of what I do revolves around textiles. The arts and crafts that I'm drawn to have to do with clothing or with spinning and weaving in general. I'm always gravitating towards those activities when I see them at a craftsperson's green or something like that. I'm very just it's like a moth to the sun. um, I don't know that I'm ever going to really put in the time and dedication to be really excellent at them, but I just like dabbling, which is a big part of what I do. I like to dabble around. Another thing that I'm really passionate about is women and gender studies, sexuality throughout history, looking at those sorts of topics in different cultures, in different time periods, um, and just sort of looking at what are our perceptions today of what those cultures and time periods were like, and what things are we maybe revealing through further research. Have we found new documentation that shows, maybe our perception is a little bit off, maybe things were not as cut and dried as what we used to think. So I find that really fascinating. I will jump down these rabbit holes for a while and pop up, and I'll be like, I just learned a whole bunch of new things, and then I wander off and do something else for a while because that's how I do.
I have to apologize. I know I'm yawning. It's not you, it's me. Haven't been sleeping good all week, and I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So it is Zoph's bedtime, but this is the best time to do the show. So it's seriously not you. It's all about me. You're fascinating. Um, so do you have a loom? Do you have a spinning wheel? What have you got?
So I have two of the smaller tabletop inkle looms, and I just recently won a large standing floor inkle loom at an auction at an event not too long ago. I have yet to warp that one up. It's a little intimidating just because of its scale. I have a drop spindle that I was gifted recently, and a lucette also. So it's just all the little tinkering things. I like to kind of play with, keep my hands busy. Um,
Nice. I
yeah.
used to do, what is it called? The Japanese.
Oh yeah, kumihimo.
Yes, I used to do that.
Yeah.
I gave that away to someone. I don't remember who I gave it to, but I don't know why I stopped doing that. That was the only thing that is like that that I ever stuck with, and then I just stopped. I should get back to doing that.
And that's funny because that's the one I haven't tried.
All right, so we're gonna do it together. We're gonna Zoph and Rosa do Kumihimo together. How's that?
Great, that'd be fantastic.
So what else do you do? What else? So what I mean, like, I think about your mom telling you these cool stories, but there has to have been some basis. Like, I don't know a single Scadian who's not read at least one of the hardcore fantasy novels, whether that's The Hobbit or Sword of Shannara or, you know,
Yeah.
the what's it oh gosh, the dragon, the eye of the what is that? Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. You know, the
I
whole long series and it's now on
oh
Prime.
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Right. So many Skeins have read all these
Yeah.
core books.
So here's the wild part. I really didn't.
What?
I really didn't. When I was a kid, because of the upbringing that I had, I really wasn't allowed to read a lot of secular publications. Most of the reading that I did was more along the lines of the pseudo historical Christian fantasy.
Hmm.
So yeah. When I did start branching out, once I got into high school a little bit and into college, I was reading more the modern urban fantasy, the modern day setting with the added bonus of witches and wizards and
Faye and yeah.
and all of that good stuff. So yeah, really, my introduction to the fantasy world really came with things like the Harry Potter movies, and which I mean, is now sadly very controversial.
Yeah, that is sad. It's sad. It's hard.
Lord of the Rings, things like that. I love watching them.
So what does your mom think about all this? I mean, you were raised I'm assuming conservative Christian household, but she kept that sword. And what does your mom think of you being in the SCA now?
Well, so there's a reason why the SCA is my family. I actually have not spoken with my mother in over a decade.
I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes people are just not healthy for us, and it's just like a bad habit. Anything else, you just go, "This isn't good for me," and you stop doing it. But when I first started in the SCA, it was mostly she kind of rolled her eyes and went, "Ugh, why would you be in that group?" But we didn't have a lot of communication at the time anyway. So I really was hunting for that found family when I found the
Right.
SCA.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a story that I don't share very often, but I feel like this is a safe place to share that. And so I hope you allow me. You're my guest, but I'm going to share a story. I am pansexual, and I had a girlfriend at one point in time before my eldest was born, who's now 23. So that tells you how long ago it was. And I really, really, really cared about this woman and called my mom and told her that I had a girlfriend and my father had passed away. And my mother said, "Oh my God, that's disgusting." And she hung up on me. And I was like, well, that could have gone better. No, wait, no, wait. Don't, no. So not even 5 minutes later, the phone rings. And this was before we could know, who was calling us. And I answered the phone and it's my mom. And she goes, "So I've always wondered what's it like."
That is amazing.
And so, it was this really, sorry, mom, I just outed you to the SCA. But she's passed on at this point, so she's looking at us from heaven. I'm sure she doesn't care. And I think about that and I wonder, I just have to wonder why your mother kept the sword. If it's that,
Exactly. And she had kept pictures too. There were pictures
yeah.
of her, with the beer in one hand, sword in the other, in somebody's backyard with a pal. And she gave those to me at one point in time. I've lost them in subsequent moves through life. But yeah, she held on to some of these things and gave them to me, and then turned around and was like, "Oh, I don't know why you would be involved in a group like
Right.
that." Yes, you do.
Yes, you darn well toot and do, mom. You know exactly why, and it's you're hiding your own love of that group
Exactly.
to make a choice that don't deny yourself. I think that if I'm going to tell that Mama Zof lesson for everybody, which is be true to yourself and just say no to toxic people.
Absolutely. And that really is one of the key kind of cornerstones of when I came back to the SCA. Is that was basically what I told myself. It was, I'm going to embrace all of the people who are good and friendly and upholding the various ideals that we hold as our core values in the SCA. Anyone who is displaying toxic behavior, I just have no space for.
Hmm.
um, and really, over the past about year and a half, I completely stepped into my full authenticity. And that was part of it. Is I am now going to very openly be completely myself within the SCA, outside of the SCA. And it has made everything just so much better.
So I'm proud of you. I don't know if you needed to hear that from anybody, but I'm proud of you. Um, when we were prepping to go on, you told me that you are a champion to the current queen, or is it to the king and queen?
To Her Majesty Runa.
To Her Majesty. What champion are you? What are you the champion of?
I am the first of the newly created service champions. In the past, royalty have not chosen to select service champions alongside of their martial champions. And Her Majesty Runa decided, you know what, this is important. This is important to also showcase alongside all of these other very skilled individuals, um, which I think is amazing and speaks volumes to her and her character. And It's still a little bit strange and overwhelming to me sometimes, and I'm still wandering around going, so what does this mean? Aside from
Yeah.
wearing a sash and wearing a hood with her heraldry on it and things like that. Like, what does this mean? Um, a lot of it is continuing to do exactly what I've been doing, which is to support the local group, particularly our local rapier group, um, just fostering that sense of community. Being almost forceful in my uh, campaigning for inclusivity, particularly for LGBTQ members. Um, that is my biggest kind of driving force, because I'm part of the community, and it's a community that I can speak to and speak
Mhm.
from.
So
And
you are a fencer.
I am not a fencer, but my
Okay. So the other community. Okay.
community, the LGBTQ. No, my spouse is a fencer, and so I end up revolving around the fencing community a lot also. But the fencing community as a whole, also, I find, is a very loving, inclusive space. So I like promoting that and helping them as much as possible.
Right. So when I read your bio, let me pull it back up. I haven't checked any comments either. Sorry, everybody. You want to help build an SCA that supports everyone's SCA dream in a fully inclusive manner, embracing people of all backgrounds and identities, creating safe, inclusive, supportive environment that you needed as a new person. So, what are some things that you're doing to make that happen? And while you answer, my face is going to light up because I'm going to go check and see if we have any comments. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Um, the things that I needed was I needed to have someone who is enthusiastic about new people, reaching out to me and taking me under their wing and guiding me along, and um, showing me all the things that I could do in the SCA and helping smooth the bumps in the road. If I, came across a peer who was maybe a bit rough or gruff around the edges, if they could have smooth that interaction a bit, that would have been helpful to me. And so I try to also do that. As much as I get to learn new people who've been in the SCA for a long time, I get to learn their personalities and their way of interacting with people, and then I can share what I see with other people, and I can say, oh, this person does seem to have a very gruff exterior, but if you get to know them and take some time with them, they're actually an incredibly loving, supportive person. So that it'll help diffuse some of that. I think that nervousness that some people have when they come in. um, Also, just knowing that it's a space where anyone can be themselves as fully and completely as they want to be. The SCA is a perfect space for self exploration. We have personas. We try on different outfits to see what feels best on us, and what better place than the SCA for someone to explore their gender identity, or some of the other facets of themselves. It's almost set up perfectly for it, to my mind. Um, and if I had realized that back then, my owning of my authentic self may not have taken as long. That may not also been true. It's hard to say.
And when you say, like, it's interesting because one of the sayings that gets bandied about sometimes is that everybody in the SCA is a chatelaine.
Hmm.
Which I do not like that saying because that is not something that's ever interested me. I'm actually a very shy person. I'm not one to jump up and meet new people. When I'm introduced to new people, I'm very welcoming and warm and give them my biggest smile and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not somebody who's going to be jumping up to to be a chatelaine. It's just not within my nature.
Sure.
Um, but what do we do about the people that are that gruff person
Mm.
that does scare people off, you know? Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, my biggest smile, I tell people, my biggest smile is saved for the new people in the SCA. The
Yeah.
newer people, which you can always tell by what they're wearing that they're new, and I give them huge smiles and welcome them and see if they need. Maybe I am. Dang it, maybe I am kind of a chatelaine. Anyway,
A little bit, a little bit.
but what do we do about those people who glare or have RBF and who don't seem welcoming and warm to those new people and scare them off? You know, we can't be there for all of the new people to help them with those kind of folks.
Right, right. I think a big part of it is identifying the chatelaine personality types who are new to the SCA. In our local group here, we have a huge university campus, and so we have a lot of student turnover. We have students coming in and out of our group all the time. But one of the things that I am kind of always on the lookout for is someone who has that very outgoing chatelaine type personality, the kind of personality that wants to just reach out and grab people and bring them in and show them around. And I think that getting them involved as quickly as possible and giving them a sense of ownership of the group is really important, because that allows them to then be more ambassadors essentially. And if we kind of empower everyone who comes in, regardless of how long they've been around, if we empower everyone to be their own mini chatelaine, with or without the office titles or things like that, if we empower them to do that, I think that that goes a long way to filling in some of those gaps. And if we get out and we get to know people more outside of our local group, we can all collectively learn what people's different personalities are and learn how the ebb and flow of the society works. So
Yeah.
more of us can learn that, oh, that person, that's just their personality type. They're not a mean person in any way. They are, a lot of times the sweetest person, um, and the most supportive. There are several people who are in my circle who very much at first glance come off as very reserved, sometimes borderline unfriendly, but they're really genuinely not, and they've been there for me in some of my darkest hours, online, and reaching out to me and, hey, are you okay, what's going on? And that's been really, really amazing.
So the way you make it sounds like you're still part of the local group that you were part of when you first joined the SCA all those years ago. Even though you pulled away from the SCA, you've stayed in that.
So I started off at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois, where the Shire of Lochmorrow was kind of based at the time. I have since moved to Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, where the University of Illinois is located, and
Gotcha.
the Shire of Carrickwen. So I'm still in Illinois. I've just moved from the west side to the east side across the center. But it's a small group. We have the college experience turnover, but I enjoy that. I like meeting new people all the time, and I really like the enthusiasm of the young people when they come in, when they first discover the SCA, and dragging them around and showing them all the things and getting them as heavily invested as they can be or want to be at the time
Mhm.
is very important, because to my mind, I'm building the SCA as a wonderful community and a safe place for them to explore themselves. And I hope that when they graduate and move on, they will connect up immediately with whatever their local group is over in their new location, and just kind of keep building and sending out all of these new young enthusiastic people to all of these other groups and places.
So some of the questions we have. Oh, Zoya. Do you know Zoya?
I don't know if I do.
Well, anyway, Kathy Burton, Zoya says hello, and that they are sad you left and glad you're back so we can fix it. Melinda says waves from Philippe et Melisande. You
Ah,
are awesome. Avi Miller just said that they can attest to your persistent, inclusive chatelaine work.
Avi Miller, Theodore, is one of our local rapier and archery members. And he is definitely a full on chatelaine personality.
Nice, nice. So what do we do? What do we do? Let's sit here in the last 20 so minutes we have. How do we fix the SCA? How do we help stop the gatekeeping, stop the rude peers, stop the unhelpful, unkind put downs and comments? What can, and of course this expands in a bigger way with the whole world, but let's just focus on our little corner right now. What can I do? What can anybody watching right now? What can they do?
As far as a lot of the gatekeeping and things, I don't know that I have a great answer for that. What I do, particularly my focus right now, is making sure that the SCA is as safe as possible, specifically to LGBTQ members. Um, I want it to be safe and inclusive for everyone. I just personally can't speak to um, the experiences of our members of color. There are wonderful people who are doing that work. Astamari Zara being one of them,
Mhm.
um, and several others. But the place that I can speak from is from the LGBTQ community. And one of the things that I've noticed recently that has been a great step towards inclusivity is asking for people's pronouns before announcing their awards and reading their scrolls and making sure that their scrolls and awards match their identities. Um, Asking what their preferred titles are. You know, do they prefer lord or lady? Do they prefer something gender neutral like gentle or noble? These things go a long way towards making people feel like they're included and accepted. Um, and I got to witness something that was very much along those lines at Crown Tournament. There was a gentle brought up who was, you know, their award was being read, and the herald on the spot was, you know, hey, what styling would you prefer? And they were allowed the space to announce what their preference was, and that preference was honored, and that was huge to me, and I'm sure it was huge to them. Um, Also, Her Majesty Runa has very graciously supported the purchase and sharing of medallions like the one that I wear on the regular. It is a wonderful SCA vendor whose information I'll share to the page later. But we, with funds from Her Majesty, purchased a number of these, and all of her champions were encouraged to wear them as a sign of our being accepting and inclusive of all people and all walks of life. So
Nice.
these things
That's
are things
great.
that go a long way towards um, building that inclusive community. Um, Another thing is just calling it out. You know, if anyone hears someone make a comment that's disparaging towards someone who's gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, pansexual, queer, non-binary, intersex, transgender, anyone within that community, if anyone hears disparaging comments, stop that person. Stop that person and say, hey, no, this is not acceptable in our society. We have a strong anti-bullying policy, but beyond that, it goes against all of our ideals. It's not honorable. It's not chivalric. It is not being the protector or defender of the weak or disenfranchised. And if it's not any of these things, then why are we participating in that sort of behavior?
Right.
If we can call those things out when we hear them, then again, that'll go a long way towards changing our culture.
So one of our listeners, viewers, Christy says, and it's great. This is great because that was going to be my next question too. So great minds think alike. Go, Christy. Can you speak on the difference between missing and broken stairs in the SCA?
So I have a little bit of a theory where a lot of us are familiar with the concept of missing stairs, which is the idea that we warn new people about established members who we know are problematic, whether that is um, from a homophobic point of view, a transphobic point of view, sexist, misogynistic. Um, Maybe they don't honor boundaries of consent in ways that are necessary. So we know about those kinds of people, and those are the ones that we refer to as missing steps, right? You go to a party and your hosts have a set of stairs, and everybody knows that there's a broken stair there. You know, it's a missing stair. Oh, just be careful and hop over that on your way up. Well, why don't we just fix the stair? Why don't we chase out the bad actors? But I think beyond that, I think before we get to a point of having a missing stair that we are actively going around warning everyone about, oh, don't go too close to that guy after dark. Don't be around that particular person because they say nasty things. Before we get to that point, there are people who we know that they aren't always the best human beings. They aren't the best that they could be. And so we do tend to skirt around some of their behavior, and we make certain allowances for some of their behavior. It's nothing that rises to the point of being truly problematic to like a legal sense or a societal reprimands sort of sense. But people that we know are gruff or deliberately grandstanding or dismissive of people. People like that, where we go, it's so and so, it's just their personality. Is it always though? Occasionally, there are people where, yes, genuinely, it is their personality, but they aren't a problematic human. They maybe just don't express themselves very well, and that's totally great and understandable. Um, but there are people who definitely could do better and choose not to. And so that's where that kind of idea, I to my mind, we have broken stairs that could be fixed before they become missing stairs. So whether
Right.
that's having conversations with them saying, hey, this is a repeated thing that keeps coming up when people are talking about their interactions with you. Is this the kind of person that you really want to be? Is this the perception that you want other people to have of you? You know, and that becomes less of a call out and more of what people refer to as calling in, right? You're not shoving them away and shunning them the way we would with someone who's a missing stair, right? Because they're dangerous and very problematic. Those people you want to just offload as toxic to our society. But people who fall into that broken stair category, I feel can be brought in and guided towards being their better selves before they get to that point. It's my own
Yeah.
little armchair
Yeah.
philosophy on it.
I mean, and we do have missing stairs, unfortunately in the SCA, but we're slowly they're they're getting
Yeah.
R&D'd
Yeah,
and kicked out of the SCA, and we're starting to shun them and let them know that that behavior is not welcome.
absolutely.
And one of the things I keep thinking about is how cis male the SCA is, right? It is filled with cis, primarily white
Yeah.
men
Yeah.
who have the vast majority of the power in the SCA.
Hmm.
And we have instances I know of some knights who have spoken up about it and been embraced, and some knights have spoken up about it and been pushed out of the SCA.
Yeah.
So how do we empower those cis males to I mean, the best way I can say it is like I asked my son, I have a 16-year-old son, and I said to him, I said, "What do you do if somebody's mean to a girl
Hmm.
in your gaming community?" And he said, I just ignore it. I said, so you don't call it out? And I said, no, the girls in my games that I play, they call the people out themselves.
Sure.
And I said, but wouldn't it be more helpful if you said something? And he was like, why? Like it just didn't occur to him. And I was like, oh, okay. I tapped that little vein and now I'm going to move on and we're going to come back to it in a few weeks and revisit it again.
Yeah.
But so many times these people will see this behavior and be silent
Hmm.
about it.
Right.
How do we encourage and assist the cis males in the SCA in being allies to the marginalized communities in the society?
I think one of the ways is to praise them, honestly, when they're doing good, when they're doing well, when they're helping marginalized communities within the SCA. I think it's important to acknowledge them. Um, some people might think, oh, but that's, why should we be, giving them praise for something that seems to be, to the rest of us, the decent human thing to do? Because they're coming from a culture that has not taught them to do that. So for them, this is a newly acquired skill. This is a newly acquired view on life. So just like when a kid is learning something new, we praise them for learning the thing. Another is to find a way to demonstrate, particularly to the younger cis white males in our community, that being toxic is not the way to succeed. If we can show them that they do not need to be toxic, they do not need to be misogynistic or homophobic in order to succeed in their aims, then again, perhaps their better natures will shine through. Because I don't think that most people come in with an attitude of I am going to be a jerk. I don't think most people come in with that attitude. I think that there are certain communities within our society that foster some of that mentality and
Right.
bring that out in people. And people learn that, well, I feel like if I'm going to get ahead in this particular part of the game, then I need to emulate these bad behaviors. But I think if collectively the newer, younger members, if they all have a better nature type of attitude, a more inclusive attitude, a hey man, that's not okay. And that's all they have to say. That's all they have to do. It's just when they hear something like that, just go, hey man, that's not all right. Why do you have to say that?
Right.
Why do you have to do that? Then they can create the groundswell from the bottom up and essentially push out those old mentalities, whether that's through teaching people who have come before them that there are other ways to be, um, or simply through outnumbering them and
Right.
becoming a more dominant, more loudly heard voice collectively.
Agreed. Um, so people are commenting, but I'm not catching the comments when the comments are happening. But thank you, Christy, for asking that question. Um, Zoya says that we need to put the choice of having your pronouns on all of the options, and I think that I know the East Kingdom has a great wiki. The Mid Realm has a pretty good wiki, and other kingdoms, I'm sure, have wikis, and I think that that should be a part of it. Put your pronouns.
Absolutely.
I don't like that. If I don't list pronouns, then the default is to she, her, me.
Mhm.
Even those are my chosen pronouns. However, I should have to list those pronouns as much as people who have chosen different pronouns from what they may appear to look like, right?
Right.
And I think that we need to do more to encourage people to have pronouns, and then if we're making scrolls for those people to be able to go look at their middle wiki, their wiki pages, or talk to the people around them and find out what those pronouns are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a similar situation to where if we want to change the culture around things like misogyny, we have to involve men. If we want to change the perception of um, gender nonconforming or transgender folks or non-binary or gender fluid, people using pronouns different from what they were assigned at birth, then it's upon all of us to share that, particularly cisgendered people, um, because that makes it normal. It makes it more widely accepted, and it doesn't call out and highlight the people who have pronouns different from what they were assigned at birth. It
Right.
just becomes a these are your pronouns, these are my pronouns, these are those people's pronouns, and it's just an accepted part of our society, and there are no assumptions made. And
Right.
that's a big part of it. Just don't make assumptions. Just ask and get
Yeah.
to know the person.
Yeah. And the other thing I've learned having a non-binary child, my eldest, is, and I tell them all the time, look, I changed your diaper. And so it's hard for me to remember. Sometimes I just slip and use a gendered pronoun with them. And I don't fall over myself apologizing anymore. If
Mhm.
I say the wrong pronoun, I go, "Oops, sorry, they,"
Yep.
and then just keep going in the
Yes.
hopes that eventually my brain will catch up to what I'm supposed to be saying.
Yeah.
And I think that people make misgendering about themselves when it's really just apologize,
Mhm.
correct yourself, and move on. We don't need
Right.
histrionics about messing up people's pronouns because that just makes it worse.
Exactly. And it's no different than if you refer to someone as Jack and then you go, "Oh, yeah, actually my name's John." And you go, "Oh, shoot, my bad. John. Sorry." And then you just move on. And then if you whenever you think of these people in the future in your mind, if you think, "Oh, hey, I'm going to meet up with John later on." If you also think, "I'm going to meet up with John later on, they have a cat." Anything that's simple like that, anything that
Mhm.
repeats that pronoun usage in your head can be really helpful.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Pair that up.
Um, so we're almost out of time. What I mean, I have the usual question I ask at the end, but I don't know that we need to ask it at this point because we've just spent 45 minutes talking about how the SCA can be better. But I do want to go to that in case you have anything else to add. But what should Scadians do doubly hard this month because it's Pride Month?
Doubly hard this month. Be very open and blatant about not just your acceptance of the community, but your support and your desire to include us. Acceptance is one thing that's okay, fine, they can exist near me. I don't mind. True acceptance and inclusion feels like bringing us in and not othering, not making us that weird LGBTQ person,
Right, right.
that weird, I don't remember what their pronouns are. What's their thing? You
I
know.
get that all the time. Oh my God, I get people messaging me all the time asking me what my eldest's pronouns are because they forget.
And that, sometimes that's fair. And it's easier to ask someone who isn't the person
Yeah,
themselves. If you
yeah.
ask someone who's close to them, that way it's not causing more emotional labor on that person's part.
Right, exactly. And I'm always happy to tell you, row. Row is they, them, everybody, in case you didn't know. Row, they, them.
Also, there's a fabulous artist online on Facebook, Rachel Ost, I think is her Facebook handle. She has made gorgeous progressive pride artwork for all of the kingdoms and several of the groups. And I know one of my friends actually reached out and asked to have something personalized. And this individual very happily threw something together that is gorgeous, like on the spur of the
Nice.
so if you are a supporter of the LGBTQ community, if you're a member of the LGBTQ community and you feel safe to do so, reach out to this person and ask if you can use it on your Facebook as your cover, and show your support.
Nice. All right, so what can the SCA do better? What haven't we mentioned?
What haven't we mentioned? The SCA needs to be more kind across the board. Kindness, kindness takes everything all
Yeah.
the way. Whether that's inclusion of LGBTQ people, whether it's inclusion of people of color or of marginalized abilities or neurodivergencies. Kindness in all of us leads to us accepting and being loving and understanding of everyone else around us.
Agreed. Any final words?
Happy Pride Month.
Yay, happy Pride Month. All right,
Keep
thank
your
you.
sunscreen on, drink your water. It's
Yes.
hot out there.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you
It's
so much.
been really great to connect with you this way. So I guess in 2 weeks we're gonna have our panel on something, but y'all got to tell me what you want that panel to be. So send me a message. Simply Scadian. We have a Gmail account too, but I check it like a couple times a week. I'm not gonna lie. I don't check it very often, but we're simply Scadian at gmail.com. So you can email us there. You can message us on our Facebook page. You can message me personally. Just search for Zoph and you'll find me if we're not friends. Again, I was talking with Rosa Rossini. Look at that. I'm going to just always say your name like that. Rosa. And we will see everybody in 2 weeks. Have a fabulous, wonderful evening, everybody. Take care. You've been watching Simply Scadian. No title required.